So in this session we are going to discuss about the diversity in living organisms, which is a continuation part of a previous video. So in earlier video we just have discussed about how what are the characters that need to be considered when you want to classify the particular plant. So in this session we are going to discuss about how the classification is done, what types of classification is done, and who are the scientists which are present who worked over this classification system. Okay, so here we need to know the term that is nothing but a variation. So what is variation is when you consider any two different species of the same species, example cow or a dog or any organism. When you consider any two organisms of the same species, you will be identifying some differences between them. So those differences between organisms of the same species is called as variations. We have two types of variations. These the variations which are shown, or the differences which are shown by the organism, may be of external or internal. So based on this we will be having the external variations and the internal variations. Now all these variations will lead to the evolution. Evolution is nothing but it's a gradual process, or the change in the body or the features of an organism is called as evolution. So we have we can see some animals here. All are considered of the same species, but you can find or you can spot small differences among all these dogs will be considered one of the example of the variations. We have a scientist named as Charles Darwin. So he explained the theory of evolution. He explained in his book that is nothing but Origin of Species in the 1859. Now let me give a proper example for the variation to understand in a better way. So if you consider the two areas, I just name it as area 1 and area 2. So if this is area 1 and this is area 2, so we have one plant which is named as a plant X in area 1. So during this process, during the reproduction process or in its lifetime, it's going to give, or it's going to produce a new plant. So it gives the it's producing the new plants of the same type of plant. So what the plant X is having the characters, same plant characters will be given to the next generation also. So I am just considering these as a baby plants. Out of these two baby plants, one plant is continuing in its generation in area 1. So that particular one plant X baby which is continuing its generation in a same area 1. In some cases this particular baby 2 plant is moved from area 1 to area 2. So in those cases what's happening to this plant is the conditions which are present in area 1 will be different to the area 2. So the X of area 1 is carried to an area 2 by the cross pollination. Okay, so after some generation, so what this another X plant is doing, it's just continuing its generation in a area 2. So after some generations, this particular X plant which is came from a area 1, after some generations it is acquiring some new characters which are not resembling a plant X of a area 1. So we are considering it as a X0. Okay, so after some generation the X of a area 1 plant is becoming a X0 by developing a new features and characters. Now this X and X0, though primarily they share the common plant, but the new species are evolved by number of generations. So you need to consider only the one thing, the X is not directly becoming a X0. After a many number of generations it's becoming X0. So that's the example of variation. Now we need to discuss about the history of classification, and we have the two important scientists who will be considered as a father of this medicines. So in a first and second century of AD, two scientists named as Charaka and Sushruta. So as you have seen here, he was the Charaka and he was the Rishi Sushruta. So these two scientists, they were considered as fathers of Indian medicine. They studied about the medicinal plants and their values, and for how to treat the diseases at that time by using that medicinal plants. All these, they just collected the matter, they have done the experiments, they treated lots of people from the diseases. Everything was written in a book is Charaka Samhita. So this was the book which was written by these two scientists and who considered as a fathers of our Indian medicines. Now, out of these two people, the he was the first surgeon in our country and performed many surgeries in ancient times. So Sushruta was considered as father of surgery. So this was a book, Charaka Samhita, which was written by Acharya Charaka. Along with these two scientists, we have one more scientist named as Parasara, or a few people will say it as Parasura also. So what he has done, so Parasura done the basic classification of a plant which have the medicinal values like the Charaka and Sushruta. So he made the classification based on flowers to classify the plants that has medicinal values. So as we have discussed in earlier classes, as plants are classified based on its different characters, the Parasura scientist or Rishi or Acharya Parasura considered the character of flowers, and based on its floral characters he classified the plants that he considered as those are having the medicinal values. At that time there was no proper way of classification until the 16th century. Later on in a 17th century, in between a 16th and 17th century, people doesn't have any idea about the classification and they don't know about the relationship with the evolution. And in the year 1758, Carl Linnaeus was the scientist who explained the a systematic way of classification. So according to his way, the two names will be given for an organism. So out of these two names, one name is denoting the genus name, or you can consider it as a generic name, and another name is a species name, or you can consider it as a specific name. For example, Homo sapiens. Homo sapiens is nothing but a modern man. So this Homo indicates the genus name or a generic name. The sapiens indicates the species name. And we have rules to be followed for this systematic way of classification, which I am going to explain now. So he was Rishi Parasura, and this is his book Vrikshayurveda, where he wrote all his knowledge and his type of classification as he considered the floral characters. So next we are having the hierarchy. So we have seen this diagram in all the materials and few people will feel difficulty to remember this. So here I'll be explaining in a simple way. We know that our environment will be having different types of living organisms, that is plants, animals, microorganisms, everything. So all are grouped and all are classified to understand them in a better way based on its similarities and the characteristics. So we have a hierarchy. It starts with the species and ends with the life. So how to remember this is, I am just writing on a screen, is SGF, OCP, KDL. So which is nothing but, as you remember, only these terms SGF, OCP and KDL, which means S in the sense it indicates the species, G means genus, F family, O means order, C is class, P is phylum, K is kingdom, D is domain, L is life. So in this way you can remember all this hierarchy in a proper way. Now all the group of species are kept in a class, that is genus. So all the group of genus are considering as a one family. So all the families will comes under order. So all the orders are grouped together to form a class. So all the classes are grouped together to form a phylum. A group of phylums are forming a kingdom. A group of kingdoms are forming a domain. A group of domains forming a life. So this is the hierarchy which we are having to classify the organisms. So when you look at here, we will be having a table which is showing the classification which was explained by different scientists till now. So when you consider Carl Linnaeus, he explained about the two kingdom classification and he named it as a Vegetabilia and Animalia. So Vegetabilia is nothing but he considered all the plant species and kept under Vegetabilia, and Animalia, all the animal species were kept. So he named that classification as two kingdom classification. So that was accepted until the next scientist explained. So Ernest Haeckel was the scientist. In 1866 he explained the three kingdom classification. So along with this plants and animals, he added microorganisms also. So Protista is a group where it involves the microorganisms or the small living organisms, and Plantae, Animalia. So that is considered as a three kingdom classification. Later on that was accepted until the next scientist explained or raised the question. Charton was the scientist. He named them as two empires. It involves the prokaryota and eukaryota. So he considered only the organisms based on its nucleus characteristics. And later on the scientist Copeland, he considered it as a four kingdom classification which involves the Monera, Protista or Protoctista, Plantae, Animalia. Later on that was accepted, four kingdom classification was accepted until the next scientist named as R.H. Whittaker. So which is considered as a five kingdom classification. Till now we are using the same. This five kingdom classification involves Monera, Protista or Protoctista, Plantae, Fungi, Animalia. Now this is widely accepted classification. Everyone are using this. And later on, Woos et al. So et al. Is nothing but co-workers. So Woos and his co-workers in 1990, he named all these as the three domains. So he divided the Monera into bacteria and archaebacteria or archaea. So this Protista, Plantae, Fungi, Animalia, all these he considered as a eukarya. So when you consider, we got the three domains here. And the next scientist, Cavalier Smith, in 1998, he explained about the six kingdom classification, which involves bacteria, protozoa, chromista, Plantae, fungi and Animalia. So this six kingdom classification is also acceptable, but all the scientists are using five kingdom classification. So as you look at here, he was a Carlos Linnaeus developed a new way to categorize the plants and animals by simply a two kingdom classification, that is Plantae and Animalia. And later on a scientist Ernest Haeckel, who explained the four kingdom classification, like it involves the Monera, Protista, plants and animals. Later on, the Robert Whittaker in 1969, he just proposed adding a fifth kingdom to the Ernest Haeckel classification, that is fungi to the tree of a life. Then that classification involves Monera, Protista, fungi, plants and animals. So he was a Robert Harding Whittaker, simply we call him as a R.H. Whittaker. He explained this five kingdom classification which involves all these organisms. So when you consider the Monera, so that Monera contains the prokaryotic organisms which absorb and they can able to photosynthesize, they can perform the photosynthesis, they are motile or maybe non-motile, they are asexual. So all these character type of organisms are grouped and placed under Monera. So later the next kingdom is Protista. So this Protista mainly involves the eukaryotic organisms which may be unicellular or multicellular. They can photosynthesize and they can reproduce in both sexual and asexual manner. That type of organisms which are sharing the similar characters was kept in Protista. And next we are having plants, animals and fungi, which will be considered as a higher organisms than Monera and Protista. So this fungi will comes under eukaryotic organism which is multicellular and which is non-motile like plants, and it is having the sexual type of reproduction. So when you consider the plants, animals, all these fungi, all these three share the common characters, like they are eukaryotic, they are multicellular, they can perform photosynthesis, they are non-motile, they cannot move like animals from one place to the other place, and the reproduction type is a sexual mode of reproduction as it involves both the male and female gametes. So all these, based on all these characters, all the organisms were classified in different ways by the scientist, and finally five kingdom classification is following